Law Talk with Nick Maruchak, thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
Nick Maruchak joins us from MKI Legal. G'day, Nick. How are you?
G'day, Bowie. I'm great, thank you.
That's good. Busy?
Yep.
Working on the weekends?
Yes, just on one day on the weekend I'll work.
Yeah. All right.
So usually a Sunday.
All right. Okay. Oh, you're busy. Well, that's good. Helping out the people that you need to help out. If you'd like to phone Nick, you can, 133 882. If you have a legal matter you'd like to discuss with Nick, he's very good. He often follows up issues with our listeners and he researches issues thoroughly while he's in the studio with us. Nick, what happens when the police or the Director of Public Prosecutions decide to press criminal charges? How does the process work?
Yeah, so this was a caller called last week or the week before, and he had something stolen from his house, and the police decided actually not to press charges. So I decided to explore that topic a little bit more, and the whole thing is about prosecutorial discretion. So both the police and the Director of Public Prosecution have this authority whether they decide to prosecute or not. And it's based on, they make a decision based on, is there reasonable grounds for a conviction and is it in the public interest, right? So there are some circumstances where they wouldn't decide to prosecute, right? Say they have this policy where, and you can actually look this policy online and see situations on how they exercise it. And, one example is if there's a minor offence by someone with a mental impairment, they wouldn't do it, right? If there's cases where the victim also has a say in whether they want the prosecution or not, like that's not fully determinative, so that's just taken into account. The police can still prosecute if the victim doesn't want to. And a situation like that is maybe domestic violence, right? Where, you can often see that where the victim changes their mind, but the police will still prosecute because the law's been broken. And if they also take into account like the seriousness of the offence. So sometimes if it's not serious or a lot of time has passed, they probably won't decide to prosecute. And the interesting thing is like if you're a victim, how do you challenge this, right? So if you're unhappy about the decision not to prosecute, what's the process? So with the police force, the police actually have to record their decision not to charge, and that has to be reviewed internally. Probably limited rights to overturn that decision. You can just write to the officer in charge and ask for some information. But when it comes to the more serious stuff, like the Department of Public Prosecutions, all the stuff that goes to the district court, the jury trials, that they have a really formal process, right? So if they decide to like downgrade the accused charges or decide not to prosecute or discontinue the charges, they do give you an internal right to appeal, right? So you have 7 days to go, look, I'm not happy with this, and then they review it internally as well. So they have a formal process. So there is something that the victim can do, but...
Could it come down in, because I recall that caller from last week, stuff being stolen from his porch, CCTV footage, knew who it was, all of that, and the police decided not to proceed. Does it depend on the value of the, you talk about the severity of the crime, but does it depend on the value of the property in question as well, Nick?
That's right. So if it's something if it's a very minor offence, right, then that would be taken into account here. And that's probably the reason that the police made that decision, because it was they weren't sure of the value of the item in that was stolen from his yard when it was delivered. But it's always a case where if that happens to you, you should follow up and write to the police and get some information, because they have to actually record it down, and the police. The WA Police Force often have their decisions reviewed by other police officers to make sure they're following the rules. But there's been many cases where small offences have been prosecuted. If you go to the magistrate's court, you'll see that minor stuff, people stealing
pot plants.
Yep, you'll see it all.
Yeah. We've got a call coming in, and I reckon of all the different roles I've had here at the station, all the times I've had legal discussions with guys like yourself, Nick, inevitably we talk about fences and neighbourhood disputes over fences. And Margaret's phoned in. Hi, Margaret.
Hello.
Hi, fire away.
Oh, okay. Well, look, on last year I came home from an activity accompanied by a friend about 3:30 in the afternoon, and there were two workmen dismantling my back fence, and approximately three-quarters of the fence had been taken down, and I had no idea that this was going to happen, so naturally I was very upset. And I spoke with the workmen, and they said, oh, the lady that we made the arrangement with, she said she'd consulted me. And I said, well, obviously she had. hasn't. And anyway, eventually she came out and said that she'd spoken to my husband. Well, my husband's been dead for many years, so I don't know who she spoke to, but it wasn't my husband. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I asked for the original fence to be put back, but it wasn't possible because it was in pieces by that stage, and 3/4 of it had gone. But the whole thing was, she should have, I think, come and seen me about it. She said in letters that I got since then, because she's taking me to court to get half the cost, but I had no say in what sort of fence, and the fence was, from my point of view, and certainly from my side, it fitted the description of an adequate fence by the Dividing Fences Act that wouldn't let any animal through or so forth. So here I am going to court shortly, and so I'm just wondering what likelihood is that she's going to be able. By the way, I'm a pensioner, so I don't have a lot of spare cash, and I could have told her that if she'd come and talk to me, could we get it repaired or some other thing if there was something wrong with it. But from my side, it was in perfectly good order.
Nick?
Yep. So the first issue is that there is a formal process under the Dividing Fences Act of Western Australia. Look at Section 8. What the process is you have to give, before you have to make a decision first whether this fence is an adequate fence, right? So if the fence does the job, it's good. You can't do anything. But if it's not an adequate fence, if it's in a state of disrepair, then the process is you have to give written notice to your neighbour to say that you intend or you wish to replace the fence. So this lady didn't give written notice, and you have to also wait 21 days before you take any action. And then if the other neighbour doesn't respond or doesn't it does nothing, once you give them the written notice, then you can take steps to try and repair the fence and then recover the cost. So this person didn't actually comply with the notice for written requirement. So that's something that you can say to the magistrate. The question is, she'll say, I did, and then she has to provide the written notice. The question is whether that will completely invalidate her claim. Potentially not, right? Because sometimes if you don't follow the exact process, the court's still not going to say, too bad, we're not going to give you anything. So the main argument here that you have to argue is whether that old fence did the job. And if that old fence was fine and didn't need to be replaced, then she'll have to pay for the entire lot and you won't be liable for anything. Mm-hmm. That's really the main argument here. Your secondary argument is that the breach, the notice wasn't given, and see how far that will take you. But you really want to collect some, if you have images of the fence, or if you have, obviously your verbal testimony is fine, and that's what you have to argue. Because if someone just wants to replace the fence because they don't like it or they want to, an upgrade or something, then they bear the entire cost. So the question I have is, are you able to, Margaret?
Can Margaret start again, do you think, Nick?
Well, start
the whole process again?
No, because she's already in court. So this lady's already started. Yep. So then if I was in Margaret's position, I would try and run the argument that she didn't comply, that the neighbour didn't comply with their technical requirements to give written notice, see how far that gets you. I don't think it's going to get the case thrown out. So then Margaret will still have to make the argument that the fence was not needed to be replaced. It was a perfectly good fence. So, Margaret, can I ask you, was your fence good enough before she started?
It was good enough, and luckily my son had been over to visit, and he took a photo because I'd just done the garden up and fiddled around, and he took a bit of a video of it, so not long before this all happened. So I think that will probably be easy to show.
Good. So then in that case, well, then you wouldn't be liable for half the fence, and then you can just go proceed with defending your case, but try and mediate with this lady, right? So you'll go through a mediation process. Have you gone to the pre-trial conference, it's called, or that's where you have to attend court and they force you to talk to each other and try and come to a resolution? Has that part started yet?
Yes. No, I've got to go to that on the 11th of August.
Great. So that's where you can just sit down and try and resolve this and let her know, look, you didn't comply with technical requirements. bring all the evidence to try and convince her that the fence was good enough, and hopefully he can resolve it. Because, yeah, it's just going to be this is kind of a big hassle.
It is, yeah. Thanks, Margaret. Cheers. Thanks for your good luck. Let us know how you go. It's always easier when it comes to fences and everything that you get on with your neighbours, but not everyone does, hey? Some people just really, the dividing fence sends people into absolute conniptions, doesn't it? It's a real dispute.
Yeah.
I get on well with my neighbour, and we've got some trees pushing into mine, but we're trying to sort it out between us just by having a chat on the driveway.
That's ultimately what you should do, because these court processes take so long, and if the claim's under 10,000, you can't recover your costs, and it's just a hassle.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Thanks for letting us know. We will come back in just a moment. 17 minutes to 11 o'clock. Mark, stay there, mate. We'll have a chat to you in just a moment. Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal is with us. Stay listening. Thanks for listening in. 133 882 Law Talk with our man Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. G'day, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, and it's a principle sort of question, really. I was in a shopping car park in Subiaco. It's looked after by Wilson's. It was fairly busy. I found a bay, quickly reversed into the bay, went inside to go shopping, just had to pick up an avocado, came back out, so literally 2-3 minutes. And there was a gentleman there. He was on one of those machines. He went to issue me a parking ticket. And I said, mate, I've only been in 2 minutes. And he goes, yeah, you get 15 minutes free, but you have to register your car before you go in. So he hadn't even put the ticket on my car yet. So anyway, he stuck it on my windscreen. I then contested it with Wilson. My understanding is Wilson don't have an authority to take you to court, but I've just received a default notice to say if I don't pay, then they're going to add extra charges.
How much, mate?
What do I do? And that's the thing. It's only it's not $80. I'm not worried about the money, but it's the principle of it, because the signage wasn't fantastic. I always reverse into the bay and didn't see the sign that was at the end of the bay. And I raced inside. So, yes, I didn't register my car for that 15 minutes. But I was in and out. Seriously, I was in and out 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. What do you think, Nico? I mean, there are... Claremont Quarter has got one of these. It's free parking, but you just need to put in a ticket, and then when you go out, it'll let you out for free. There's quite a few places around that have little barriers, and you can do that. But places like that one, I know that one, you need to actually register and still go to the parking machine. Leaderville's the same. Yeah,
so this is my approach, Mark, right? So if you get a ticket from the council, that one, if you want to challenge that one has a bit of a risk, because if you lose in court, the council there's people that have to pay a lot of money, right, if they lose against the council. So that one's always a bit risky. But this is not a council. This is a private company, Wilson Car Park. So they don't have any authority to fine you. So they've sent you a letter that probably looks like a fine, but it's actually not a fine. What it is they're making a claim against you, a civil claim for breach of contract. And they often do this, where they will write you a nasty, threatening letter, then they'll write you a second one, increase the price a bit, and write you a third one. And often, but not guaranteed, often they go away. And so if you're prepared to take a little bit of risk, you can just ignore the letters, and then hopefully they just won't prosecute you. When I say prosecute, commence a claim against you. Because the reality is, it's going to cost them like $300 to file the claim in the magistrate's court. Then you have to go to a pretrial conference, and then they have to argue their case about liquidated damages, and it's just all too hard. So my understanding is they probably just send these letters out, and they very rarely take someone to court.
How would they did the letter get sent to your house, Mark? How did Wilson's get your address?
Well, because I'm an honest person, that when they gave me the ticket, I think they must have some arrangement for your registration. But either way, I filled in the form to state my case.
Yep.
And I've got no issue to say, I parked there. I did. But it's the fact that...
so you gave me your address, mate, hey? You gave me your address, because Wilson should not have access to your rego details.
No, and I know how Wilson gets it. I've made inquiries in the past about this, and what they do is they actually make an application to the Supreme Court. So there is this, anyone can do this. If you have a claim against someone, but you don't know the details about them, and someone else has the information about them. So here is the Department of Transport has the details about who this registration belongs to. So Wilson will make an application for discovery against the Department of Transport. So they'll probably, my guess is they probably do this, every 2 months. They have a big list, and they'll say, we want to sue all these people. We don't have their address. Department of Transport does, and then they go through the court, and then they get the list. So
I remember doing this years ago, Nick, when I was working in mornings before, and we went Wilson's on this one, and because they were getting from DOT from a level 3 public servant, and they shouldn't have been.
That's right. And I think the crime corruption CCC was involved
that's
in
right.
that.
Yeah.
And that's right. In the past, you can't just because all that information is private. The government official there was completely breaking the law, and that was corruption, right? So they have to go through the court process. In the past, there was this.
So Wilson's are still going to the Supreme Court to get licenses, do you think?
Or to get the addresses of people, right? Because if you've got someone's rego, you don't know where they live. So how they're going to send a letter to your house? They have to go to the Supreme Court, and then they'll get the court order, and then the Department of Transport will give them all the details. So and anyone can do that if for example, if you don't know the identity of someone that's caused you harm and you want to sue them, you can go through this process. But it's costs money and stuff. So that's what they do, and they do it by the book.
So
now.
To go back to Mark's issue, and it is an issue of principle, and he's filled in a form which might leave him in the lurch there. But Mark, now Mark's entered into the process with Wilson's. He probably needs to pay it, doesn't he?
No, I mean, look, I'm actually Wilson. Actually, I've been through this before, and I have friends who've been through this before, and they don't
follow up.
They don't follow up, so they'll stop after 3 letters. You can write to them and try and put your case in, but see if that will work. Probably not going to work. And then if you want to take a bit of risk, just ignore it, and then hopefully it'll go away. But if they do start suing you, then this is the plan, right? The plan will be that you'll try and negotiate them really quickly and have the case ask for the case to be dismissed, and that won't affect your credit record.
Yep. Tom, g'day. Tom's on line 5. Jimmy, g'day, Tom. You got some advice for Mark?
Yeah. G'day, Simon. Yeah, it's to do with the parking under Wilson car park. I had the same problem last year when Gary and Nick were on, and they helped me out, and and they just completely forgot about it. The reason that they get your details, your home address, number, and so forth, is that when you dispute it with Wilson, you have to put the information in online, and that's how they send you out.
Yeah, okay.
But that's very cheeky of them.
Yeah. Mine happened when last year there was that worldwide outage on the internet. My wife parked at South Perth, and couldn't get a ticket, and neither could a lot of other people, and they will complain, and I said, I'm not paying it. So in the end, I wrote them and I said, listen, if you want the money, you've got to take me to court.
Yeah, all right.
Get anything more out of them.
I'm just going to let you go, Tom, because your phone is a little dodgy, mate, but thank you for coming back to us. Cheers, mate. Hello, Tammy.
My partner was issued with an infringement notice from the Keep Australia Beautiful Council as someone alleged that he threw a lit cigarette out of his van. My partner disputed it, sent in a stat deck to say that he didn't. A letter came back from the council and said that they went back to the witness and they said that without doubt that they saw him do it. Having reviewed the stat deck, they weren't satisfied that there were grounds for the infringement to be expunged, and so the fine would stand, which is $500.
Wow.
With that letter came a extract from the submission from the witness, which describes the vehicle where he was driving, which was correct. He was also in the area that they alleged that he did this. But they also say that they described him as having fair hair, but he has very dark hair. What is the point of the matter is that he absolutely knows that he didn't do it, although he does smoke, but he has a butt bucket in his van to put his butts in. He never, ever throws it out of the van. So they may have seen him smoke, but he definitely didn't throw it out of the van.
Yeah.
So now it's an issue of either pay the fine or go to court. But does Brad have to prove that he didn't do it?
Well, they will have to prove, because it's a criminal case, they will have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he did do it. So they will have to call the witness, and then your husband, your partner, will have the opportunity to cross-examine the witness, challenge it, and the court has to be satisfied that there's no doubt at all that he did it. The thing with these kind of cases is normally if you're prosecuted by, say, a police officer, you don't have to pay the costs if you lose. But when it comes to if you're prosecuted by a council, or this is Keep Australia Beautiful, I fear that there might be a risk that if you take this to court and you lose, then they can probably add another couple of grand, $4,000 onto your fee. So you just want to check that point, because similar to we've done this story before where local councils have prosecuted people for fines and they've lost, and then it's been like $3,000-4,000 added on top as court costs. So that's and this might be the case here, where normally if it's a civil claim under $10,000, you can't recover costs, but this isn't a civil. This is a criminal, it's like a prosecution where there might be grounds to recover that. So I would say that you would probably see if you can do a request of freedom of information, or try and get more information from them and have another go at trying to negotiate with them to try and convince them that there's some discrepancy in the evidence, and try and convince them that they may not have a reasonable case to prosecute. Because you have to take this risk of whether I pay the $500 now, or whether I go to court, and then
A lot of money, 500, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know that when it comes to these littering laws, there's a lot of journalists and other people who are registered that keep an eye out on the road, and then they will report it. So it's a question of testing that person's evidence to see how reliable they are as a witness on the stand.
Yeah. All right, Tammy, thank you. We'll have to leave it there. Nick, we've run out of time. Thank you very much, mate. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for talking to our listeners. And we'll have a good week, and try not to work on the weekends if you can get away with it.
Thank you, Bowie.
Thank you, mate. Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. 3 minutes to 11 o'clock.